What's going on, everybody? As you can see beside me here, most of the Bitcoin miners are red. Bitcoin, however, is slightly up today. Now we're going to take a look at CleanSpark and iren. We're also going to look at Bitcoin on the chart and some news that's been circulating around lately. We all know that Mt. Gox creditors are getting paid out. They're starting to sell their Bitcoin. We're going to talk about that a bit. We're also going to talk about Germany, how much Bitcoin they have, how this should affect Bitcoin. And we'll talk about something that will affect Bitcoin likely even more than any of those things. So if you guys get something useful out of this, make sure you like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, check out the links down below, and let's get started. Now, what's going on with Germany? They have around $2 billion worth of Bitcoin. It's scaring the market. They have been selling their Bitcoin on open exchanges. And with all the recent selling from them, now they're sitting at about $1.9 billion worth of Bitcoin, which they're likely to continue to work on selling. The thing you got to realize here is the real issue is the market fear surrounding this. And while $2 billion seems like a very large number, and if it's all sold on the short term, of course, it'll obviously negatively affect price. You have to realize that the market is always forwards looking. I can bet you that the market sold off more than $2 billion worth of Bitcoin in fear of this upcoming news. I can bet you that the market sold off more than $9 billion worth of Bitcoin in fear of the Mt. Gox repayments. There's around 19.7 million Bitcoin in circulation, worth about $1.1 trillion. And I think James Butterfield sums it up very well. For investors, though, it's all about how those sales are impacting the mood in the market. That while these sales are relatively minor, this has definitely affected the market sentiment. And it's similar with this Mt. Gox saga going on. $9 billion worth of Bitcoin seems like a lot, sure, and it is a lot. But in reality, that's 140,000 Bitcoin. This is less than 1% of the overall Bitcoin supply. To think that this isn't going to get soaked up along with any selling from Germany, I will simply bring up the old saying, time heals all wounds. Give it some time and the market will absorb this selling. Consider this, while there's been all this fear circulating around, what's been happening with the spot Bitcoin ETFs? Well, on last Friday, we saw inflows, and yesterday we saw inflows as well. And this recent weakness brought $441 million worth of digital asset inflows. So 441 million, what's that? A fourth of Germany's potential selling. From Friday and Monday, we had a total of $441 million in spot Bitcoin ETF inflows. We had inflows in the US of 384 million, Hong Kong saw 32 million, Switzerland saw 24 million, and Canada saw 12 million. Germany saw 23 million in outflows. What's the biggest picture here? What's more important than any of this going on? Money supply. Not only global supply, but US money supply. And US money supply is growing again. In April and May, M2 money supply decreased about 0.6% year over year. And while it remains below the 2022 levels, we are finally seeing increased money supply. Now, as for Bitcoin, like I mentioned yesterday, we are getting some bullish RSI divergence. Prices going down, but RSI is starting to rise. One negative is we are now under our 200 MA, which we haven't done for Bitcoin in quite a long time, pretty much this whole entire bull run. There was a brief stint that we were under the 200 MA back at the end of 2023, so hopefully this is another instance of that where we're just under it for a little short while before we break back over. But it does look like we are finding resistance on the 200 MA for now. The 50 is now curling down, however the 200 MA is still pointing up. And what I am expecting for Bitcoin personally, what I expect at least, is that we are going to ride over this previous resistance that we did break out of. We are going to hold this as support, roughly around 54,000. And we are going to use this to bounce off of, breaking out of this descending resistance here, this descending line. That's my expectation and hope, at least. Every time we've seen an RSI this oversold, within a month, 2 months, we have rallied all the way to overbought. Throughout this bull run in the last year and a half, every time we have seen an oversold RSI, the market was quick to recover it. I'm hoping this is another instance of that. Although this time there is definitely a little more fear circulating around Bitcoin, with Germany selling, with Mt. Gox creditors getting paid out after years and years of being stuck just waiting. And those two things are going to negatively affect Bitcoin's price. Will it end this bull run? Will it break the 4-year cycle? I don't think so. CleanSpark is in the longest consolidation period in its history that at least I have seen. We've been stuck in this range from roughly 14 to the low 20s, just bouncing around. We didn't really do this last cycle. Last cycle, there was really no consolidation like this. It was basically constant rips and constant dips along the way. And while yes, recently we have been ripping and dipping, but we have been stuck in this range. We have not seen any new price territory in the last few months. I do personally expect this to change. One catalyst that can change this is, of course, upcoming CPI. If we get some good numbers, I do expect small caps to rally, including a lot of the Bitcoin miners. And another big catalyst coming up for Bitcoin miners like CleanSpark is earnings. In early August, they are going to report their period ending in June, so April, May, and June. And during most of that period, Bitcoin was an average around 60, maybe 62, 63,000. There was times when it got towards 70. There was times when it got into the mid 50s. But it'll be really important to watch what CleanSpark gives for forward guidance? And are they in fact profitable here at a Bitcoin around 65,000 average? I would doubt that they are. And even they don't expect profitability, but this was guidance from the last quarter. And basically, they're expecting a small dip in revenue. Many are expecting a dip in revenue, so this is natural. They just got through the halving. And this is the first quarter basically fully reflecting it. What'll be key here is forward guidance. And what I'm really hoping for by early August when CleanSpark's going to report earnings is that Bitcoin starts recovering in price. That means they'll be able to give some better forward guidance. We also have iren. They actually expect to be reporting a profit. They're expecting a $61 million revenue. That would be growth in revenue, which is awesome. This is one of the only miners expecting growth in revenue, whereas many others are expecting a decrease in revenue. Many others are not expecting profitability. This could partly be why the market has been pushing this so much. One thing I expect for iren is I do expect a pullback. What I expect from iren is for it to continue to follow its pattern. It goes up here, gets to the extremes, gets to overbought, and it does cool down. I personally do think we topped out here, and we are going to see some lower prices, which will be a great time to scoop up some iren. I am bullish on it on the long term. But on the short term, I do expect it to come down and test some lower levels, test our moving averages. Do I think it's going to come down all the way to the 4s to the 5s? I don't think so. But is something like $10 a possibility? I do think it's possible. We'll see if the market takes it there. But I do believe any good dips from iren will be a fantastic buying opportunity looking forwards. One negative I see with this one is they don't really hodl their Bitcoin. I do believe as Bitcoin dramatically increases in price, the miners that hold the most Bitcoin will benefit the most. But that's not to say iren won't do very well over the rest of this cycle. I do think iren is one of the Bitcoin miners to be in for this cycle. They have huge land contracts, they have huge exahash growth coming, and they are getting into AI. Let me know what you think about what's going on lately. Are you worried with Bitcoin? Do you think Bitcoin is going to see much lower levels? Bitcoin has broken its 4-year cycle? Or do you think we're going to continue to see these 4-year cycles play out, and this is merely a dip? Bitcoin will get much higher later in the year. And how are you feeling about these Bitcoin miners? Are you taking advantage of the pullbacks? Have you been taking profits as they've been running up? It's a good sign seeing these spot Bitcoin ETFs inflows. While there's all this fear about Bitcoin, it shows that big money is interested in Bitcoin. Big money is taking advantage of the dip. And I do expect the spot Bitcoin ETFs to kind of provide a backdrop for us. If we start pulling back, the spot Bitcoin ETFs will kind of prop us up a little bit. In the end, Bitcoin is a long-term investment. If you do take advantage and buy the fear, there is not more than like a 2-year period that you'll be down. So in reality, being patient, buying the dip, DCAing and hodling, you really can't go wrong if you're patient enough. But really, I believe that the Bitcoin bull run isn't over and we don't need to wait 2 years to be green. I do believe buying the dip now will play out in our favor even within a couple of months. But thanks as always for watching, guys. Let me know what Bitcoin miners you're most interested in lately. Hopefully you're taking advantage of this short-term fear. And the market goes in its cycles. The market will be fearful. The market will be euphoric. When you look back, you do want to take advantage of these fearful events. Before you know it, Mt. Gox creditors will get their funds. Many will sell. That'll be ancient history and no one will even care anymore. And when we look back at this dip, will hardly be remembered. One way you can remember it is by taking advantage and buying it. You can look back and say, I bought during all that fear. While everyone else was selling cheap Bitcoin to me, I bought it. But thanks again, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.